Solve the equations below using the quadratic formula. Okay, so we're going to solve these equations, right? I'm going to solve one, and then you guys should solve the rest of them. Okay? Remember, you can have complex roots that you're going to need to be able to deal with I, or you could have regular roots. We're mostly leaving the radicals alone if they're irrational numbers, although you should know how to get a rounded answer if you need to. So remember, the first step is always to set one side equal to 0. Okay, so I'm gonna do A. And to set one side equal to 0, I think it's gonna be easier for me. I just wanna take this over here. So negative 8x squared, I'm gonna subtract 8x squared from both sides. So that leaves 0 on this side, and then the other side you need to write in standard form. So negative 8x squared minus 9x minus 6. You need to get them in order for standard form. Now identify A, B, and C. A equals negative 8, B equals negative 9, and C equals negative 6. So now I want to plug that into the quadratic formula, right? And this is something you need to memorize. Opposite of B plus or minus the square root. B squared minus 4AC over 2A. If you memorize it, it's pretty easy from there. Opposite of B is 9. Plus or minus the square root, b squared, negative 9 squared. Remember to put that negative in the parentheses so your calculator knows. Take the opposite first, then square. Minus 4 times negative 8 times negative 6, all over 2 times negative 8. Okay, so now we have, it's just order of operations from here, right? We've substituted, and it's just order of operations. I need to do 9 squared first. So 9 plus or minus the square root of 81. And then I'm going to do negative 4 times negative 8 times negative 6. And so that's negative 192. And just double check that your signs are right. This should be positive because I'm squaring it. This should be negative because the negative times the negative times the negative is negative, right? All over 2 times negative 8, negative 16, right? Okay, now I need to subtract 81 minus 192, 9 plus or minus negative 111 over negative 16. Okay, so negative 111, right? Square root of negative 111. Last year in Math 2, you would have written no real solution because it has a negative under the square root. But here now we know that it's a complex root. We know that we can split this up into its real part and its imaginary part, the complex number, square root of negative 1. And now I'm going to see, can I take the square root of 111? Well, I can, but that would involve rounding, and I don't want to do that. I want to leave it as so I'm going to just leave square root of 111. But I can turn the square root of negative 1 into an I. And over 16. And because this can't simplify any further, I can stop here, right? This is as simple as it can get. I can't combine these. I can't divide into anything. So I stop here. If you had been able to reduce this, you might have needed to simplify further. If this hadn't been an I, you might have had like terms you could have combined, and you would have had to do the positive plus and the minus. But for this one, this is where you stop. So that's the biggest thing, is kind of knowing when to stop for these kind of problems. Some of the problems, you're going to end up actually having just a real number here where you might get down to this step, but it looks more like 9 plus or minus 2 over 4. Then you really need to work out both of them. You need to work out 9 plus 2 over 4 and 9 minus 2 over 4, and keep going, 11 over 4 and 7 over 4. And now that's as reduced as it gets. So knowing where to stop is kind of the most difficult. But notice that those were like terms, whereas this is not. You can't combine 9 and a radical with a complex number, right? A real number with an imaginary number. So you do the rest for practice, B through F.